turned politician who seemed to come out of nowhere to deal Israeli conservatives a surprising setback in last month's election. Netanyahu's Conservative Party still holds the majority of parliament seats with 31, but Lapid's centrist party is second with 19. And it's not just about the numbers, it's about expectations. And by that measure, Lapid won easily. The 49-year-old capitalized on his charisma and national reputation to gain traction on the political stage, and he did it late in the game. He opted to put issues that have typically defined Israeli centrists on the back burner, namely the issues of settlements and Middle East peace. He didn't talk about it. Instead, Lapid made himself the champion of the middle class, campaigning for lower taxes and against the military exemption for ultra-Orthodox Jews. One supporter said, quote, "For many years, I would listen to political messages and think they didn't understand me or my needs, and then he came along." But not everyone is convinced. The New York Times quoted Israeli historian Tom Zagev as saying voters who chose Lapid voted for nothing but a TV image. Nevertheless, Lapid has gone from political newcomer to potential kingmaker in less than a year. The question now is, how will he use his power? Will he remain a working-class hero, claim a mandate to revive peace talks, or start building the kind of political resume that can then knock off Netanyahu himself the next time around? No matter what Lapid does, now that he's been elected, he's already changed the face of political campaigns in Israel, because he ended up using grassroots support, voter outreach, an internet campaign, and he turned it into potentially a winning formula. Mark Mellman was Lapid's personal pollster during the campaign. Of course, many of you know Mark from his work for John Kerry and a lot of other Democratic campaigns on this side, on this time zone, but you did some work for Lapid. First,
thank you.
You've done some work in Israel before. What made this Israeli election different from other ones that you've worked in?
Well, usually, as you suggested, security issues are at the center of Israeli elections. For a number of reasons in this election, security issues weren't the central topic of discussion. They weren't the central focus of voters. There was a real rising of the middle class, a concern about economic issues.
Where is the economy right now in Israel?
Well, the economy actually is pretty good compared to the United States, but there are a lot of people who are concerned about the cost of living, how the cost of housing is very high, the cost of electricity, other elements of daily life very high. But there's also concern about sharing the burden. Ultra-Orthodox members of the ultra-Orthodox community, for example, don't serve in the army and don't really participate in the economy. That's something that's a unique issue for Israel. It's not something that's relevant to the United States, but that's something that the middle class in Israel, the ordinary folks who send their kids to the army, who pay taxes, who work, have real concerns about.
Geez, trying to do middle-class issues. It sounds like you were giving advice to a Democratic candidate, say, that was maybe get too involved in special interests and telling him, hey, stop dealing with constituency groups. Try dealing with sort of what are people talking about every day. Did you do focus groups? Is that what you just found out?
Well, we did a lot of, we did focus groups, we did polling, but we had a candidate who came with his own very strong views. I mean, as you said, Yair's a journalist, not just a TV personality. He's was a columnist. He'd written about these issues for many years and was very much focused on trying to be a champion for the middle class, and that was something exactly what Israelis were looking for.
So what's he going to do here? I mean, because I have to say, I have no idea what happened to the opposition. When people say, what is the leading opposition party in Israel to Netanyahu, I sit there and say, well, it's not really Labor. There was that other thing that they came up with for a while that seemed to have disappeared. What is the leading opposition party?
Well, it's not clear who's the opposition yet.
They're still trying to figure that out, right?
Exactly. The stage now is putting together a government. It's up to the Prime Minister, Netanyahu, to form that government. He's consulting with all the parties, including Yesh Atid, which is Yair Lapid's party, on exactly what kind of formula he's going to put together. But he faces a very fundamental choice at this point. He can put together a fairly narrow coalition that's mainly on the right side of the spectrum in terms of the security issues and doesn't really contain folks who are focused on these middle-class issues. Or he can go in a more centrist direction, include Lapid, and really
Does Lapid want in?
Well, I think Lapid has made very clear conditions for his entry. For example, he won't join a coalition that doesn't agree to draft to provide national service for the ultra-Orthodox community. So he has a few conditions that have to be met, but his goal is to make a difference for the public, and you do that on the inside if you can. But if the government's not willing to accept his conditions, you won't be there.
Was this the first one of the things that and what sparked me to want to do this? I read your column. You were saying that you guys did this sort of in a non-traditional way for Israeli politics. social media and all that front. Is that? Do you think you guys broke some ground here that now will become the norm?
It's increasingly will become the norm. I think that's everyone recognizes that.
I'll be honest. I'm surprised it wasn't sooner in Israel. It's a very wired country.
It is a very wired country. But, you know, the Israeli politics, first of all, they don't get as much practice as we do at this. Yeah. They have elections. The last one was 4 years ago. But, you know, the reality is that the campaign finance limits in Israel are very strict for a new party. Could hardly spend any money. This was a new party. Only got 7 minutes of TV time. You can't buy TV time. The government gives you TV time. Right. Only got 7 minutes. You can't spend much money. So we were really forced to use these other media, and other people count.
Next time you're going to get treated more like a mainstream party.
Exactly.
All right, Mark Mellman, one of the